The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and light orbiting the neutral world below. Inside, beings from across the galaxy sat in their designated seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were made of pure energy. They all looked at the holographic display in the center of the room. Commander Jake Morrison stood near the back wall. He wore his human military uniform, dark blue with silver insignia. His face showed no emotion as he watched the aliens talk about his species. Next to him, Ambassador Kate Sullivan adjusted her tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "The simulation is complete," Vorith announced. The reptilian war marshal's voice echoed through the chamber. His yellow eyes gleamed as he manipulated the hologram with his clawed hand. "The Krauth fleet will reach human territory in 48 hours. Once battle begins, humanity will fall within 4 to 6 hours. The hologram showed red ships advancing toward blue dots that represented human colonies. Numbers scrolled beside the image. 300 Krauth warships against fewer than 100 human vessels. The math looked simple. The outcome seemed certain. Zilara, the ancient crystalline being who led the council, tilted her head. Light reflected through her transparent body. "This analysis is confirmed." Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Yes, Chairwoman." Vorith tapped his display. "We have data from the Krauth's last 17 conquests. They have perfected warfare over 3,000 years. Humanity has only been in space for 150 years. Their military tactics are primitive. Their weapons are adequate but not exceptional. Their formations follow basic defensive patterns." Another council member, a floating blob of blue gas, spoke up. "What about human unpredictability? We have heard stories." Vorith made a dismissive gesture. "Stories and myths. Our computers have analyzed every human military engagement on record. They follow predictable patterns once pressed. They will attempt to defend their colony world. They will form a defensive line. The Krauth will break through using standard hammer formation. It is mathematics, not speculation." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he remained silent. Kate glanced at him with a slight shake of her head. Not yet. The hologram played out the predicted battle. Red ships smashed through blue formations. Human vessels exploded in silent bursts of light. Colony worlds went dark. The simulation showed every detail of humanity's predicted defeat. "The Krauth are already celebrating," another council member said. "They have announced they will add Earth to their empire within 1 season." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some sounded sympathetic. Others sounded resigned. A few sounded almost eager to see the young human species put in its place. Vorith continued, "I recommend we begin evacuation protocols immediately. If we start now, we can save perhaps 30% of the human population from the major colonies. The rest—" He paused. "The rest will be enslaved or eliminated per Krauth custom." "That is unacceptable," Kate said loudly. Every eye in the chamber turned toward her. She walked forward, her heels clicking on the metal floor. "We request 48 hours before any intervention." Vorith's laugh was harsh. "Ambassador Sullivan, did you not see the simulation? Your people will be destroyed." "Perhaps." Kate stopped at her designated spot. "But humanity has a right to defend itself without interference. If the Council begins evacuations now, it will cause panic. It will disrupt our defensive preparations. We ask for 48 hours to handle this our way." Zilara studied the human woman. "You seem confident despite the analysis." "I have confidence in my people," Kate replied simply. Another council member, an insect-like being with multiple eyes, spoke. "This is pride talking. Vorith's simulations have never been wrong. The Krauth are the most dangerous military force in this sector. They do not lose battles." Jake finally spoke. "Neither do we." The chamber fell silent. Jake walked forward to stand beside Kate. With respect, War Marshal Voreth, your analysis is based on incomplete data. Incomplete? Voreth's eyes narrowed. We have access to every human military database, every battle record, every tactical manual. Yes, Jake agreed. You have access to everything we've shown you, but there's a difference between what you see and what you understand. Explain, Zylara commanded. Jake met her crystalline gaze. Humanity spent 3,000 years fighting itself before we reached the stars. We've studied war longer than we've had space travel. We've read about every type of conflict, every strategy, every mistake. When the Krauth conquered their 17 civilizations, we studied those battles too. We studied them very carefully. Voreth waved a dismissive claw. Studying and executing are different things. The Krauth have experience. They have perfected their methods through countless victories. Exactly, Jake said quietly. They've perfected a method, one method. They've won so many times that they've stopped evolving. They fight today the same way they fought 1,000 years ago. Because it works, Voreth insisted, against enemies who fight predictably. Jake looked around the chamber. Against civilizations that use standard military doctrine. But humanity didn't learn warfare from galactic textbooks. We learned it from each other. From thousands of different cultures with thousands of different approaches. Kate added, we request 48 hours. If we're wrong, you can begin your evacuations then. If we're right. She smiled slightly. Well, then your simulations will need updating. Zylara was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. The Council grants your request, 48 hours, but we will deploy observer ships to document the battle. When it begins, we will be ready to evacuate survivors. Thank you, Chairwoman, Kate said with a bow. As the council session ended and beings began filing out, Voreth approached Jake and Kate. I hope you understand that I take no pleasure in this, he said quietly. But I have seen war for 2 centuries. I know how this ends. Jake looked at the old warrior. So do we, War Marshal. So do we. Later, as Jake and Kate rode the shuttle back to the human embassy, Kate finally asked, Are you certain about this? Jake looked out at the stars. Admiral Carter has been planning for this exact scenario for 10 years. Every simulation we've run ends the same way. In our victory? In less than 15 minutes. Jake smiled grimly. The council predicted hours. We're going to give them minutes. Kate leaned back in her seat. They're going to be very surprised. That's the plan, Jake said. That's always been the plan. Admiral Ryan Carter stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching dozens of screens display information from across human space. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. Those hands had commanded fleets through 3 smaller conflicts, but nothing like what was coming. Status report, he said calmly. Captain Lisa Hayes looked up from her console. The Krauth fleet crossed into monitored space 20 minutes ago. They're maintaining formation, heading directly for New Haven Colony, arrival in 41 hours. Ryan nodded slowly. Just like the simulations predicted. Every single time, Lisa confirmed. They haven't deviated from their standard approach pattern in any of the 17 conquests we studied. A door hissed open, and Dr. Ben Park walked in, carrying a data pad. The weapons specialist looked tired but excited. Admiral, Project Checkmate is complete. All 80 ships have been retrofitted. Show me, Ryan said. Ben activated the wall display. A schematic of Krauth shield technology appeared, rotating slowly. The Krauth shields have 3 layers. The outer layer deflects energy weapons. The middle layer absorbs kinetic impacts. The inner layer protects against radiation and extreme temperatures. We know this, Lisa said impatiently. Yes, but look here. Ben zoomed in on the connection points between layers. The shields rotate frequencies every 3 seconds to prevent sustained bombardment from breaking through. It's an elegant system, unbreakable by conventional weapons. But not by ours, Ryan said. Ben grinned. Not anymore. We've modified every weapon on our ships to pulse at a specific frequency. When the Krauth shields rotate, there's a microsecond gap. Our sensors can detect that gap. Our weapons fire in that exact microsecond. Lisa leaned forward. That's incredibly precise timing. Which is why we've been practicing for 6 months, Ben replied. Every gunnery crew has run this drill 10,000 times. They can do it in their sleep. Ryan walked to the main display showing the deployment map. 80 blue icons surrounded the planet New Haven in what looked like a defensive formation. Do the Council observers suspect anything? No, sir, Lieutenant Greg Foster answered from the communications station. They see us setting up exactly as they predicted. Standard defensive perimeter. They think we're going to make a brave last stand. Good. Ryan's eyes moved across the display. The Krauth have won 17 times because everyone fights them the same way. Direct engagement. Ship against ship. They're bigger, stronger, and more experienced. In a fair fight, they win every time. So we don't give them a fair fight, Lisa said. Exactly. Ryan pulled up another screen. In every battle the Krauth have fought, they use the same formations. The hammer, the spear, the anvil. It's doctrine. It's tradition. It's worked for 3,000 years, so they never changed it. Ben pointed at the Krauth fleet composition. 300 ships, 60 heavy cruisers in the front line, 120 medium destroyers in support, 100 light frigates for flanking, 20 command ships in protected center position. The same composition they've used in their last 8 conquests, Ryan noted. They're predictable. We've had 23 days to track their approach. In that time, they haven't changed speed, heading, or formation once. Lisa pulled up a new display. Admiral, we've identified their command ship. The war leader Thrak commands from the center, protected by the heaviest vessels. If we disable him first, their command structure breaks down. They rely too much on centralized command, Greg added. Our analysis shows that when their leadership is disrupted, it takes them an average of 8 minutes to reorganize. That's a lifetime in combat. Ryan turned to face his officers. Humanity has been fighting wars for our entire history. We've made every mistake possible. We've learned from every defeat. The one lesson that matters most is this. You don't win by being stronger. You win by being smarter. He activated the tactical display. The Krauth will arrive expecting a desperate defense. They'll see our ships spread out, protecting the colony. They'll advance in hammer formation because it's what they always do. They'll broadcast their surrender demand because it's tradition. And then, Ben asked, though he already knew. Then we show them something they've never seen before. Ryan's finger traced patterns on the screen. We've divided our fleet into 12 strike groups. Each group has 7 ships. When the battle begins, we don't hold position. We don't defend. We attack. Lisa highlighted the movements. Strike groups Alpha through Delta hit their flanks simultaneously. Groups Echo through Hotel target their support vessels. Groups India through Lima go straight for the command cluster. But not in straight lines, Ryan emphasized. We use micro jumps, short-range FTL bursts, jump in, fire, jump out. The Krauth shields are designed to handle sustained fire. They're not optimized for rapid repositioning attacks. Ben added, and with our modified weapons punching through their shields, each hit will do maximum damage. We're not trying to overpower their defenses. We're bypassing them completely. Greg spoke up from his station. Admiral, New Haven Colony Defense Coordinator is asking if they should begin evacuations. Negative, Ryan said firmly. Any evacuation will be detected by Council observers and reported to the Krauth. We need the enemy to believe we're protecting a fully populated world. They're arrogant. They'll want the glory of conquering a defended colony. Risky, Lisa observed. This entire plan is risky, Ryan admitted. But we've simulated this battle 467 times. In 467 simulations, we won. Average time, 11 minutes and 32 seconds. Ben looked at the screens showing the approaching Krauth fleet. They've defeated 17 civilizations. Some of those species were in space before humans existed. What makes us different? Ryan considered the question. Those civilizations relied on what they knew. They used proven tactics, standard formations, predictable strategies. They fought the way everyone fights. He looked at each of his officers. Humanity doesn't have proven tactics because we're too young. We don't have standard formations because we haven't been in space long enough to develop them. We don't use predictable strategies because we don't know what's predictable yet. Our inexperience is our advantage, Lisa said slowly. Exactly. The Krauth have studied galactic warfare. They know how everyone fights. But they can't predict us because we fight like nobody else. We're not bound by 3,000 years of doctrine. We can try things that seem crazy to them. Greg received a message and read it aloud. Council observers report the Krauth fleet is maintaining course. They estimate battle will commence in 38 hours. Observers are positioning their ships to record the engagement. Let them watch, Ryan said quietly. Let them record. Let them send it to every corner of the galaxy. Because in 38 hours, the Krauth are going to learn something important. What's that, sir? Greg asked. Ryan smiled coldly. That humanity doesn't lose. The command center fell silent except for the quiet beeping of consoles and the hum of computers. Outside the windows, Earth rotated slowly below them, blue and green and beautiful. Somewhere out there, 300 enemy ships approached with absolute confidence. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Commander Alex Bennett checked his fighter's systems one more time. Everything showed green. Behind him, 23 other fighters from Squadron 7 waited in the launch bay. Through the viewport, he could see the planet New Haven hanging in space, peaceful and unaware. All squadrons, sound off. Captain Lisa Hayes' voice came through the comm. One by one, squadron leaders reported ready status. Alex keyed his mic. Squadron 7, ready for launch. Acknowledged 7. Stand by. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat in the captain's chair of the frigate Dancing Blade. Her ship was smaller than most in the fleet, fast and nimble. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly, checking weapons and shields. Ma'am, I'm detecting massive FTL signatures, her sensor officer called out. Range, 2 million kilometers. 300 contacts. It's the Krauth fleet. Amy felt her heart beat faster but kept her voice steady. Battle stations. All hands to combat positions. Com, signal the flagship. Far away on a council observer ship, Voreth watched his displays with grim satisfaction. The Krauth fleet had arrived exactly on schedule. He could see the human ships scattered around New Haven, trying to form a defensive perimeter. They're brave, his assistant said quietly. Foolish, but brave. Record everything, Voreth ordered. When this is over, these recordings will serve as a lesson to other young species. Pride leads to destruction. The Krauth fleet moved forward in perfect formation. The massive ships advanced like a wall of metal and weapons. At their center, war leader Thrak stood on his command deck. His 4 arms crossed in satisfaction. The humans prepare to defend, his tactical officer reported. 80 vessels, small craft. They position themselves between us and the planet. Thrak laughed, a deep rumbling sound. They think their small fleet can stop us. Admirable, futile, open a channel. Across all frequencies, Thrak's voice boomed. Humans of New Haven and Earth, you face the Krauth Empire. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make examples of your entire species. You have 60 seconds to comply. On the orbital defense station, Admiral Ryan Carter listened to the message. He glanced at Captain Lisa Hayes. How theatrical. Should we respond, sir? Greg Foster asked from communications. Ryan walked to the comm station and opened the channel himself. War Leader Thrak. This is Admiral Ryan Carter of the Human Defense Fleet. I have 5 words for you. He paused. You came to the wrong neighborhood. Then he cut the transmission and said, All ships execute Plan Cascade. Instantly, 80 human ships broke formation. They didn't scatter randomly. They moved with precision, each ship jumping to predetermined coordinates. Micro-FTL bursts carried them across thousands of kilometers in seconds. On the Council observer ship, Vorith stood up sharply. What are they doing? That's not defensive positioning, They're everywhere, his assistant said in shock. The Krauth fleet tried to track the human vessels, but they kept jumping. Short bursts, impossible to predict. One moment a human ship was on their left, the next it was behind them. Then it was above them. All ships. Maintain hammer formation, Thrak commanded. They're trying to confuse us. Hold position and wait for them to commit. But the humans didn't commit. They kept moving, jumping, repositioning. Then, without warning, they all fired at once. Commander Alex Bennett led his squadron in from the Krauth fleet's right flank. All fighters, weapons hot. Target the destroyer cluster. Fire on my mark. He waited for his computer to sync with the other squadrons. Mark! 24 fighters launched missiles simultaneously. The missiles were timed perfectly. They struck the Krauth shields during the microsecond rotation gap that Dr. Ben Park had identified. The shields flickered. The missiles went through. 12 Krauth destroyers lost power instantly. Impossible, Vorith whispered, watching from his observation post. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez brought her frigate in close to a Krauth heavy cruiser. The big ship's weapons tracked toward her, but she was already jumping. She reappeared behind it and fired. Her weapons found that tiny gap in the shields. The cruiser's engines exploded. Dancing blade to all ships! The modifications work! Amy's voice carried across the battle network. Their shields are useless! War Leader Thrak watched his tactical display in disbelief. Red icons representing his ships blinked and went dark. 10 ships, 20, 30. How are they doing this? He roared. Their weapons should not penetrate our shields. War Leader, they're not trying to overpower the shields, his tactical officer said frantically. They're going through them, during the rotation cycle. It's as if they know exactly when the gap appears. That's impossible. No species has ever cracked our shield rotation. The humans have, sir. Thrak snarled. Execute spear formation. Concentrate all firepower on the center. We'll overwhelm them with pure destruction. The Krauth fleet tried to reorganize. The heavy cruisers moved forward, forming a pointed attack formation. It was a formation they'd used successfully for centuries, a formation that had broken through the defenses of 17 civilizations. Admiral Ryan Carter watched the Krauth ships move on his display. They're doing spear formation, just like we predicted. Strike groups echo through hotel. You're clear to engage, Lisa Hayes ordered. Target their command cluster now. 6 human strike groups, 42 ships total, appeared around the protected center of the Krauth fleet. They jumped right into the most defended position. It should have been suicide. Instead, they opened fire with devastating accuracy. Captain Dan Wright commanded the carrier Eagle's Reach. His ship was larger than most human vessels, designed to launch bombers. All bomber wings, you have clearance. Target that command ship. The big one in the center. 60 bombers launched from the Eagle's Reach and 2 other carriers. They swarmed toward War Leader Thrak's flagship like angry insects. The Krauth point defense systems fired desperately, but the bombers were too small, too fast, too many. The modified bombs struck the flagship's shields during the rotation gap. The shields collapsed. The bombs hit the command ship's hull and burrowed inside before exploding. War Leader Thrak was thrown across his command deck. Alarms screamed. Fires erupted. His tactical display went dark. War Leader, we've lost main power. Someone shouted. "Life support is failing! Weapons are offline!" Thrak pulled himself up, blood running from a cut on his scaled head. "All ships, regroup! Focus defense on—" But his communication system was dead. He couldn't command his fleet. He could only watch through a viewport as his ships tried to fight without orders. The Krauth fleet was chaos now. Without central command, captains made their own decisions. Some tried to retreat, others attacked blindly. A few attempted to form defensive positions. None of it worked. The human ships moved like dancers, appearing and disappearing, firing with perfect accuracy. Every shot found that microsecond gap. Every strike disabled rather than destroyed. Vorith sat heavily in his chair, his eyes fixed on the displays. "They're not trying to kill them," he said in wonder. "They're disabling them. Every shot is precise. Engines, weapons, shields. They're neutralizing the threat without unnecessary death." "How long has it been?" his assistant asked. Vorith checked the timer. 8 minutes since first contact." On the dancing blade, Amy Rodriguez's crew cheered as another Krauth ship powered down. Her sensor officer called out, "Ma'am, I'm reading Krauth ships attempting to flee. Their FTL drives are charging." "Strike Group Alpha, this is Rodriguez. Krauth vessels attempting escape. Request permission to intercept." Admiral Carter's voice came back immediately. "Permission granted. Block their escape routes. Do not let them leave. We need them all here." Human ships jumped ahead of the fleeing Krauth vessels, cutting off their exit. The trapped ships found themselves surrounded, their shields useless, their weapons disabled, their commanding officer silenced. One by one, they powered down their weapons. Commander Alex Bennett and his squadron circled the battlefield, escorting disabled Krauth ships to safe orbit. "Squadron 7 to command, I count 286 disabled enemy vessels, 14 destroyed by secondary explosions before we could prevent it, 0 human casualties." "Confirmed, 7, Lisa Hayes responded. She looked at Admiral Carter. "Sir, I believe the battle is over." Ryan Carter looked at his timer. 12 minutes and 17 seconds since the Krauth fleet arrived. He opened all channels. "All Krauth vessels. This is Admiral Ryan Carter. You are defeated, but not destroyed. Power down your remaining systems and prepare for rescue operations. We will provide medical assistance and life support. Resist, and we will be forced to destroy you completely. You have 60 seconds to comply." Across the battlefield, the last Krauth ships went dark, their crews accepting the impossible truth. They had lost, not in hours, in minutes. On the Council observer ship, Vorith couldn't speak. He simply stared at the battlefield where 300 Krauth ships sat disabled, surrounded by 80 victorious human vessels. Captain Dan Wright stood on the bridge of the Eagle's Reach, watching the tactical display as his bomber wings returned from their successful strike. Around the carrier, the battlefield looked nothing like anyone had expected. Instead of debris and destruction, there were simply disabled ships floating in orbit. "All bombers recovered, Captain," his flight operations officer reported. 0 losses. Minor damage to 3 craft from Krauth Point Defense, but everyone's coming home. Dan allowed himself a small smile. "Good work. Get the damage crews on those repairs immediately. We still have a job to do." On the dancing blade, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was already moving to the next phase. "Helm, take us to grid position 77. Sensors, scan for Krauth escape pods and life signs." "Ma'am, detecting 17 escape pods from that destroyer we disabled. They're drifting. Life support shows green." "Launch recovery shuttles. Get those Krauth crews to safety." Amy pulled up the fleet-wide communications. "All ships begin rescue operations. Priority is saving lives, not taking prisoners." Across the battlefield, human ships moved among the disabled Krauth vessels. Medical shuttles launched. Engineering teams prepared to provide emergency life support. It was organized chaos, but every human crew knew their role. Admiral Ryan Carter watched it all unfold from his command center. The main display showed the entire operation, 80 human ships managing 300 disabled enemy vessels. It should have been impossible. Instead, it looked almost routine. "Admiral, Council Observer Vorith is requesting communication," Greg Foster said. "Put him through." Vorith's reptilian face appeared on the screen. He looked older somehow, his eyes showing something Ryan recognized. The look of someone whose understanding of the universe had just been shattered. "Admiral Carter," Vorith said slowly, I need to understand what just happened." Ryan gestured to the display. "We fought a battle, War Marshal. We won. In 12 minutes. Vorith's voice carried disbelief. "The Krauth Empire, 3,000 years of military dominance, 17 conquered civilizations, defeated in 12 minutes by a species that has been in space for only 150 years. 12 minutes and 17 seconds, Captain Lisa Hayes corrected quietly. Vorith continued as if he hadn't heard. "Your weapons. They penetrated Krauth shields as if the shields weren't even there. How?" Ryan considered how much to reveal. Then he decided the truth was important. "We studied them. For 10 years, we analyzed every Krauth battle, every formation, every tactic, every technology. We found the weakness in their shield rotation and designed weapons specifically to exploit it." 10 years, Vorith repeated. "You prepared for this exact battle for 10 years? "We prepared for every possible battle," Ryan corrected. "The Krauth were just one scenario. We have similar contingencies for every major military power in the galaxy." Vorith's eyes widened. "Every major power?" "Defensive contingencies only," Ryan assured him. "We don't want to fight anyone, but if we have to defend ourselves, we'll be ready." On War Leader Thrak's disabled flagship, emergency crews worked to restore life support. The command deck was dark except for emergency lighting. Thrak sat in his command chair, staring at nothing. His tactical officer approached cautiously. "War Leader, the humans are sending medical teams. They offer assistance." Thrak laughed bitterly. "Of course they do. They defeat us completely and then offer help. It's humiliating." "Sir, 73 of our ships have critical damage. Without assistance, thousands of Krauth warriors will die." Thrak closed his eyes. Pride warred with responsibility. Finally, responsibility won. "Accept their help. Tell our crews to cooperate fully. We have lost. There is no shame in accepting mercy from the victor." The tactical officer hesitated. "War Leader, how did they defeat us so quickly? Our shields should have held. Our formations are proven. Our tactics have worked for millennia." "That's exactly why we lost," Thrak said quietly. "Our tactics worked for millennia. We never changed them because we never needed to. We became predictable. We became arrogant. We assumed that because we always won, we always would win." He looked at his officer. "The humans studied us while we ignored them. They found our weakness while we were too proud to believe we had any weakness. We forgot the first rule of warfare. Never underestimate your enemy." Lieutenant Megan Torres piloted her bomber back to the Eagle's Reach, her crew quiet behind her. They'd just participated in history. They'd helped disable the command ship of the most feared military force in the sector, in less time than it took to eat lunch. "Torres, you still with us?" her co-pilot asked. "Yeah. Just thinking. We trained for this for 6 months. Practiced that bombing run 10,000 times, and when it mattered, it worked exactly like it was supposed to." "That's the scary part," her co-pilot said. "It wasn't luck, it was planning." The Admiral knew exactly how this would go. Megan nodded. "Makes you wonder what else he's planned for." At the Galactic Council Station, Chairwoman Xylera watched the battle recordings for the 3rd time. Around her, other council members did the same. Some looked impressed. Others looked worried. A few looked frightened. "They didn't just win," a council member said. "They dominated. Completely, decisively, without taking losses. And they showed mercy, another added. They could have destroyed the entire Krauth fleet. Instead, they disabled and captured them. Now they're rendering aid. Zylara spoke thoughtfully. Ambassador Kate Sullivan said humanity would handle this their way. I don't think any of us understood what that meant. On her screen, human medical ships moved among the Krauth vessels, saving lives, providing assistance. The same vessels that had just defeated them were now helping them survive. This changes everything, Zylara continued. The Krauth were our standard for military power. If humanity can defeat them this easily, then humanity is now the standard, Vorith finished. He'd joined the council viewing remotely. And they're not just powerful. They're different. They think differently. They fight differently. They win differently. Back at the Orbital Defense Station, Admiral Ryan Carter received updates from all ships. Rescue operations were proceeding smoothly. The Krauth were cooperating. No further incidents. Admiral, we're getting messages from across human space, Greg Foster reported. New Haven Colony is safe. They're asking if they can thank you personally. Tell them we were just doing our job, Ryan said. Sir, I'm also receiving communications from Earth. The news networks are calling it the 12-minute war. They want interviews, press conferences, statements. Ryan sighed. He hated press conferences. Tell them we'll make an official statement once all rescue operations are complete. Right now, we have Krauth crews that need help. Lisa Hayes looked at her commander. Sir, you do realize what you've done, right? You've rewritten galactic warfare. Every military in the galaxy is going to study this battle. Good, Ryan said. Let them study it. Let them learn. The lesson isn't about how to defeat the Krauth. The lesson is about how to think differently. How to prepare. How to adapt. He looked at the display showing human ships working to save their former enemies. The Council predicted ours because they thought we'd fight like everyone else. We won in minutes because we didn't. We fought like humans. We prepared. We adapted. And we showed mercy when we could have shown destruction. Captain Dan Wright's voice came over the command channel. Admiral, this is Eagle's Reach. We've successfully rescued all crew from 6 disabled Krauth vessels. Medical teams report most injuries are minor. They're surprised we're helping them. Tell them that's what humans do, Ryan replied. We defend fiercely, but once the battle ends, we help everyone we can, even former enemies. Commander Alex Bennett and his squadron escorted the last group of disabled Krauth ships to safe orbit. He looked at the planet New Haven below, peaceful and secure. His radio crackled with chatter from other squadrons, all reporting successful missions, 0 casualties, objectives achieved. Squadron 7, this is Bennett. Job well done, everyone. Let's head home. As his fighters turned back toward their carrier, Alex thought about what his grandmother used to say. She'd been a soldier in the old wars on Earth, before humanity reached the stars. The hardest part of fighting, she'd told him, is knowing when to stop. Today, humanity had fought perfectly and stopped at exactly the right moment. Not when the enemy was destroyed, but when the enemy was defeated. There was a difference, and that difference mattered. The 12-minute war was over. The real work of peace was just beginning. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council chambers were filled to capacity. Every member species had sent representatives. Observer species, who normally didn't attend, had requested special permission to watch. The chamber hummed with conversations in 100 different languages. Ambassador Kate Sullivan walked to the human delegation area with Commander Jake Morrison beside her. She could feel every eye in the chamber tracking them. Some looked at them with respect, others with fear, a few with something close to worship. Feels different than last week, Jake said quietly. Everything's different now, Kate replied. Chairwoman Zylara called the chamber to order. Her crystalline form reflected the lights, sending rainbow patterns across the walls. The Council convenes to discuss the recent conflict between the Krauth Empire and humanity. Ambassador Sullivan, Commander Morrison, you have the floor. Kate stood and walked to the center speaking position. Thank you, Chairwoman. 1 week ago, this council predicted that humanity would fall to the Krauth in 4 to 6 hours. The battle lasted 12 minutes and 17 seconds. I'm here to explain why the prediction was wrong and what this means for all of us. She activated a holographic display. Commander Morrison will present the military analysis. Jake stepped forward. War Marshal Voreth's simulation was accurate based on the information available. The problem was that the information was incomplete. When we joined the Galactic Council, we shared our military databases as required. What we didn't share were our strategic planning documents and tactical innovations. You withheld information? A council member asked sharply. We shared everything we were required to share, Jake replied calmly. We didn't lie. We just didn't reveal our entire hand. Would any of you share your complete military strategies with species you barely know? Silence answered him. Jake continued. Humanity prepared for conflict with the Krauth for 10 years. We studied every battle they fought. We analyzed their formations, their tactics, their technology. We found weaknesses. Then we designed weapons and strategies specifically to exploit those weaknesses. He pulled up footage from the battle. The Krauth shields rotate frequencies every 3 seconds. Our sensors can detect the microsecond gap during rotation. Our weapons fire in that exact microsecond. It requires precise timing, which is why we trained our crews for 6 months on nothing else. Voreth stood from his seat. Commander Morrison, I must ask. You said humanity has prepared defensive strategies for every major military power in the galaxy. Does that include council member species? The chamber went very quiet. Jake met Voreth's eyes steadily. Yes, we have defensive contingencies for every military power. We don't want to fight anyone. But if someone attacks us, we'll be ready. Some might consider that threatening, Voreth said. Some might consider it prudent, Jake countered. We're a young species in a galaxy full of empires that have existed for thousands of years. We'd be foolish not to prepare. Kate stepped forward. The Council needs to understand something important. Humanity's victory over the Krauth wasn't about superior technology. It wasn't about superior numbers. It was about superior preparation and willingness to think differently. She changed the display to show historical data. The Krauth have used the same basic tactics for 3,000 years. Why? Because they work. They won 17 conquests using the same formations, the same approaches, the same strategies. They became predictable. A council member spoke up. Are you saying the Krauth were defeated by their own success? Exactly, Kate confirmed. They never needed to evolve because they kept winning. They perfected a system and then stopped innovating. Meanwhile, humanity spent 3,000 years fighting itself. We tried every possible type of warfare. We made every possible mistake. We learned from all of it. She pulled up more data. When we reached space, we didn't have established military doctrine. We weren't bound by tradition. We could look at galactic warfare with fresh eyes. We could see patterns that others missed because they were too close to them. Zylara leaned forward. What you're describing is both impressive and concerning. If humanity can defeat the Krauth so easily, what prevents you from becoming the next empire that conquers others? Admiral Ryan Carter's face appeared on a holographic display. He was joining the meeting remotely from Earth. Chairwoman, if I may speak? Proceed, Admiral. Ryan's image solidified. Humanity could have destroyed the Krauth fleet completely. We had the ability and opportunity. Instead, we disabled their ships and immediately began rescue operations. We saved thousands of Krauth lives, including their war leader. That's your answer. We fight to defend, not to conquer. A new hologram appeared next to Ryan. It was war leader Thrak himself. Many council members gasped in surprise. The Krauth commander looked different than he had a week ago. Less proud, more humble. Chairwoman, I request permission to address the council. Thrak said. Permission granted. Thrak took a breath. I commanded the fleet that attacked humanity. I expected an easy victory. I was wrong. The humans defeated my entire force in less time than it takes to give a proper battle speech. They could have killed us all. Instead, they showed mercy. He paused. I've spent the past week recovering on a human medical ship. The doctors treated my injuries with the same care they gave their own wounded. The guards treated me with respect, not cruelty. Admiral Carter himself visited me to ensure I had everything I needed. Thrak looked around the chamber. I've conquered 17 civilizations. I've seen how victors treat the defeated. The humans are different. They could be monsters. They choose to be heroes instead. The Krauth Empire formally withdraws all claims against human territory. We offer peace and friendship to humanity. The chamber erupted in conversation. Kate let it continue for a moment before speaking again. The Krauth aren't the only ones who need to understand what happened. This battle revealed something important about humanity's place in the galaxy. She pulled up a new display. We're not trying to replace the Krauth as the dominant military power. We're not interested in conquest or empire. What we offer is a different approach to conflict and cooperation. Jake added, Humanity has experience with hundreds of different cultures working together. Earth alone has thousands of distinct groups, languages, and traditions. We've learned how to cooperate despite differences. We've learned how to share knowledge and innovate together. What are you proposing? Zylara asked. Kate smiled. We're proposing that humanity's military knowledge becomes available to all Council species. Not our weapons, not our specific tactics, but our approach to strategic thinking, our methods of analyzing problems, our willingness to challenge traditional assumptions. Vorith stood again. You would share your military insights with potential enemies? We'd rather have allies than enemies, Kate replied. The Krauth attacked us because they saw us as weak and easy prey. If all Council species understand how we think, they'll realize that attacking humanity is a losing proposition. Prevention is better than conflict. Jake continued. We're also proposing the creation of a strategic innovation group within the Council. Its purpose would be to help member species think differently about challenges, not just military ones. Scientific problems, economic issues, diplomatic deadlocks. Sometimes the solution isn't better technology or more resources. Sometimes it's just a different perspective. A council member asked, and humanity would lead this group? We'd contribute to it, Kate corrected. Every species has unique insights. The key is combining those insights in new ways. Humanity's contribution is our lack of preconceptions. We're new enough to question things that others take for granted. Zylara was quiet for a long moment, her crystalline form shifting colors as she thought. Finally, she spoke. This council has existed for 6,000 years. In that time, we've developed protocols, traditions, and assumptions about how things work. Perhaps that's been our weakness. She looked directly at Kate and Jake. The human delegation's proposal is accepted. The Strategic Innovation Group will be created with representatives from all interested species. Furthermore, humanity's status within the Council is hereby elevated from probationary member to full alliance member with complete voting rights and Council protections. The chamber filled with mixed reactions. Some species applauded, others looked uncertain. A few clearly disagreed but didn't object publicly. Kate bowed respectfully. Thank you, Chairwoman. Humanity accepts this honor and responsibility. As the official session ended, council members approached the human delegation. Some offered congratulations. Others asked questions about Earth and human culture. A few requested private meetings to discuss strategic matters. Vorith approached last. Ambassador Sullivan, Commander Morrison, I owe you an apology. I underestimated your species severely. Jake extended his hand. You analyzed the data you had. Your conclusions were logical. You just didn't have all the variables. Vorith took the offered hand cautiously, then shook it firmly. I would like to visit Earth someday, to understand how humans develop such unconventional thinking." "You'd be welcome," Kate said warmly. "Though I should warn you, we're still figuring out how we think ourselves. Humanity doesn't have all the answers, we just ask different questions." Later, Kate and Jake stood at a viewing window looking down at Centauri Prime. The planet rotated slowly below them, blue and green like Earth. "We changed everything today," Jake said quietly. "We started changing it last week," Kate corrected. "Today we just made it official. The question is, what happens next?" Jake smiled. "More species will study humans. Some will try to copy our methods, others will develop their own innovations in response. The galaxy is going to get more interesting. And more competitive," Kate added. "Good. Competition drives innovation. As long as it stays peaceful competition, everyone benefits." Jake looked at his companion. "You know what the really important part of today was?" "What?" "Thrax speaking on our behalf. The Krauth could have stayed silent, nursed their wounds, and planned revenge. Instead, their leader publicly thanked us and offered friendship. That takes real courage." Kate nodded. "Former enemies becoming friends. That's the real victory. Not the battle. This, understanding, respect, cooperation." She pulled out her tablet and checked messages. "Admiral Carter wants to know if we're ready for the next phase." "Which is?" "Teaching other species how we prepared for the Krauth battle. Sharing our analytical methods. Helping them see their own blind spots." Kate smiled. "Apparently, 17 species have already requested consultations." Jake laughed. "From galactic underdogs to strategic advisors in 1 week. Not bad." "Don't let it go to your head," Kate warned. "We won 1 battle. We prevented 1 war. There's a whole galaxy out there with thousands of potential conflicts. This is just the beginning." "I know," Jake said, still looking at the planet below. "But it's a good beginning. The Council predicted our defeat. We delivered victory. They expected weakness. We showed strength. They assumed we'd be predictable. We proved we're anything but." He turned to face Kate. "But the most important thing we showed them, that strength and mercy aren't opposites, that victory doesn't require cruelty. That the strongest choice is often the kindest one." Kate smiled. "That's very philosophical of you, Commander." "I've had a strange week," Jake replied with a grin. "Somewhere across the galaxy, in council chambers and military academies, on planets and stations and ships, beings of every species watched recordings of the 12-minute war. They analyzed the tactics. They studied the strategies. They tried to understand how humanity did the impossible. But the real lesson wasn't in the tactics or strategies. It was in the mindset, in the willingness to question assumptions, to prepare thoroughly, to think creatively, to show mercy when you could show destruction. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They'd introduced a new way of thinking to an ancient galaxy, and that would change everything.